Captain Alan Wright stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder, his eyes fixed on the main screen. Outside, the stars looked the same as they always had, but everything had changed. 6 alien ships surrounded the Pathfinder in a perfect circle. They were unlike anything humans had built, smooth and curved with no visible engines or weapons glowing with soft blue light. "They're sending another message," said Olivia Diaz, the ship's engineer. Her hands moved quickly over her console. The alien's face appeared on screen. It had pale green skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. When it spoke, the ship's computer translated. "The Galactic Consortium has reached its decision," the alien said. "Humans are too dangerous to join galactic society. You fight among yourselves. You destroy your own world. You would bring chaos to the order we have built over 10,000 years. Alan stepped forward. "We've only just begun to explore space. Give us time to prove ourselves." "We have seen enough," the alien replied. "You will return to your home system. You will remain there. Any attempt to leave will be met with force." The screen went black. Alan looked at his crew. 20 men and women, the best Earth had to offer, now looked to him for answers he didn't have. "What do we do, Captain?" asked Olivia. Alan took a deep breath. "We go home. We tell Earth what happened, and then we figure out what comes next." The Pathfinder turned back toward Earth. As they traveled, the alien ships followed at a distance. Through the ship's sensors, they watched as more alien vessels arrived. Hundreds of them, then thousands, forming a sphere around the entire solar system. When they reached Earth orbit, Alan spoke to the United Nations Security Council. He told them everything: the first contact with the consortium, the brief talks, and the final judgment. "They're putting up some kind of energy barrier around our entire solar system," he explained. "They call it containment. I call it prison." The council chamber erupted in anger and fear. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for more attempts at diplomacy. President Maria Dawson raised her hand for silence. "Captain Wright, in your opinion, do we have any chance against their technology?" "No, Madam President," Alan said honestly. "Their ships move in ways ours can't. Their weapons could destroy us before we got close. We need time." Over the next weeks, the barrier took shape. It was invisible to the naked eye, but instruments could detect it, a shell of energy surrounding the solar system just beyond Pluto's orbit. When test probes were sent to touch it, they were instantly destroyed. The last message from the consortium was brief: "The containment is complete. You are now forgotten." But humans did not accept being forgotten. 6 months after the barrier went up, leaders from all nations gathered in Geneva. For once, old enemies sat side by side with a common purpose. "We must unite," said President Dawson, "not just as allies, but as one government for all Earth. Only together can we hope to one day break free." After 3 weeks of talks, the Earth Unification Government was born. Its first act was to create the Barrier Research Division, with Olivia Diaz as its head. Alan visited Olivia at her new laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains. The facility stretched for miles underground, filled with the best scientists and equipment Earth could provide. "How's it going?" he asked as they walked past rooms full of researchers and strange devices. "Slowly," Olivia admitted. "The barrier, technology is like nothing we've seen. But we're learning. Each test tells us something new. How long until we can break through?" Olivia shook her head. "Years, maybe decades, maybe more." Alan stopped walking. "I might not live to see it." "Then your children will," Olivia said firmly. "Or their children. However long it takes, we'll find a way out." As they talked, they reached the main research chamber. In the center stood a piece of alien technology, a small device recovered from the brief first contact. "This is the key," Olivia explained. "It's part of their communication system. If we can understand how it works, we might learn how the barrier works too." Alan looked at the alien device. It seemed so small to hold humanity's future. "Before I left the Pathfinder," he said quietly, "I sent one last message to the consortium. I told them they made a mistake. What mistake? Olivia asked. They've caged the wrong species, Alan said. Humans don't stay in cages. Not forever. The years passed. Alan became an advisor to the EUG, helping build Earth's new United Space Fleet. Ships that might never leave the solar system, but would be ready when the day came. Olivia's research progressed slowly but steadily. Each breakthrough was celebrated, each setback overcome with new determination. 10 years after the barrier went up, Alan stood on the observation deck of the new Luna base, looking up at Earth. From here, everything seemed peaceful. You couldn't see the factories working day and night to build ships and weapons. You couldn't see the universities where a new generation learned advanced physics and engineering with a single purpose: freedom. His communicator beeped. It was Olivia. "We've done it," she said, her voice excited. "We've created our first working model of their technology. It's primitive compared to theirs, but it works." "What does this mean?" Alan asked. "It means we're on the right path," Olivia replied. "We're decades away from breaking the barrier, but now I know it's possible." That night, Alan wrote in his journal, "They think they've imprisoned us, but they've only given us purpose. Every human now looks to the stars with the same thought: we will return. And when we do, the galaxy will remember who we are." In Nemum, cities across Earth, children were taught to look up at the night sky and remember that beyond the invisible barrier lay their future. In schools, they learned advanced science alongside history, preparing for the day humanity would break free. And, in the heart of the Barrier Research Division, Olivia's team worked tirelessly, each small victory bringing them one step closer to the stars that had been taken from them. The consortium had meant to cage humanity. Instead, they had united it. They had meant for Earth to be forgotten. Instead, they had created an enemy that would never forget and never stop trying to break free. The exile had begun, but so had humanity's greatest journey. 350 years had passed since humanity was caged in their own solar system. Now they ruled most of the known galaxy. The Earth Galactic Empire spanned thousands of worlds across countless star systems. Humans and their allied species lived in an age of peace and prosperity that would have seemed impossible to those who witnessed the exile so long ago. Empress Claire Jefferson stood at the center of the Galactic Senate chamber on New Earth. She was a woman of average height with dark hair streaked with silver. But there was nothing average about her presence. Leaders from 500 worlds fell silent as she raised her hand. Today marks the 350th anniversary of what our ancestors called the exile, she began. What was meant to be our end became our beginning. What was meant to be our prison became the foundation of our empire. The senators applauded, a mixture of humans and aliens from dozens of species. Among them were representatives from the very races that had once imprisoned humanity. Now they served as client states within the empire, treated fairly but reminded of their past mistakes. "Our journey from prisoners to rulers taught us many things," continued the Empress. "We learned self-reliance. We learned unity. Most importantly, we learned that freedom is not given. It is taken by those strong enough and determined enough to seize it." After her speech, Claire met with her inner council in a private chamber overlooking the capital city. Through the windows, they could see the endless towers and floating platforms of the metropolis that had grown from the first human settlement beyond the barrier. "The delegation from the former consortium Central Worlds has arrived," announced Alex Morgan, the Imperial Diplomatic Minister. "They're waiting to be escorted to the Monument of Exile on Earth." Claire nodded. "Make sure they understand this is not just a ceremony. It is the final acknowledgement of their ancestors' mistake." The Monument of Exile on Earth was a massive museum built around the deactivated barrier generators that had once imprisoned humanity. Inside, holographic displays showed the history of the exile and humanity's eventual triumph. At its center stood the original communication device that Olivia Diaz had studied so long ago, the first piece of alien technology that humans had mastered. The former consortium leaders walked through the museum with awe and fear on their faces. They had come to formally apologize for their ancestors' actions in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. Your people thought they could cage us and forget us, said Claire as she met them at the central chamber. Instead, you gave us the time and motivation to become stronger than any species in galactic history. The alien leaders bowed their heads. One stepped forward, clearly the spokesperson for the group. Empress Jefferson, on behalf of the species that once formed the Galactic Consortium, we offer our profound apology for the actions taken against humanity 3.5 centuries ago. We recognize the arrogance and cruelty of that decision. We are grateful for the mercy your empire has shown us, allowing our worlds to maintain their culture and partial autonomy under imperial protection. Claire accepted their apology with a simple nod. The past cannot be changed, but the future is ours to build together, humans and aliens alike, as partners rather than prisoners. The ceremony concluded with the aliens placing their hands on a special crystal that recorded their apology and sealed their pledge of loyalty to the Empire. It would be displayed in the museum for generations to come. Later that week, far from the political center of the Empire, a young explorer named Daniel Ross prepared for a historic mission. His research vessel, the Horizon, was unlike any ship ever built. It contained technology from a dozen alien cultures, improved and perfected by human engineers. Daniel stood on the bridge, looking at the main screen that showed their destination, the Andromeda Galaxy, visible as a spiral of stars in the distance. All systems are ready, reported his first officer. The jump drive is charged to full capacity. Daniel took a deep breath. If successful, they would be the first beings from the Milky Way to reach another galaxy. The journey that would have taken millions of years at conventional speeds would be accomplished in a matter of minutes with the new jump drive. Before we make the jump, Daniel said to his crew, I want to share something with you all. He activated a small hologram projector. The image showed a man in an ancient uniform, Captain Alan Wright of the Pathfinder, the first human to encounter the aliens who exiled humanity. In our historical archives, there's a record of the last message Captain Wright sent to the consortium. Before returning to Earth, he said, You've caged the wrong species. Our ancestors spent generations proving him right. They turned imprisonment into opportunity. They used isolation to grow stronger. Daniel looked at each member of his crew. Now we're about to go where no one from our galaxy has ever gone before. We carry with us the legacy of those who refused to accept limitations placed on them by others. He turned to the main console. Activate the jump drive. Let's show Andromeda what humans can do. The Horizon disappeared in a flash of light, leaping across the void between galaxies. In that moment, humanity's reach extended further than any species in known history. Proof that the exile had created not victims, but conquerors. Back on Earth, in a quiet corner of the Monument of Exile, a school teacher led a group of children through the exhibits. The children, a mix of human and alien, listened with wide eyes as she told them the story of humanity's journey. The most important lesson from our history, she explained, is that our greatest strengths often come from our greatest challenges. The aliens who exiled us thought they were punishing us. Instead, they gave us the gift of unity and purpose. One child raised a hand. Would we have built the empire if we hadn't been exiled? The teacher smiled. Perhaps not. Sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need, disguised as something you don't want. As the children moved to the next exhibit, the teacher glanced at the final display, a simple quote etched in stone. They caged us, forgot us, and ultimately bowed before us. The stars belonged to those who refused to be forgotten. Across the vast empire that humanity had built, billions of beings, human and alien alike, looked up at the night sky with wonder rather than fear. The cage was gone, the galaxy was open, and humanity's greatest journey was just beginning. 90 years had passed since humanity's dramatic escape from the solar system. What began as a single colony on New Dawn had grown into a network of thriving worlds spanning dozens of star systems. The Earth Star Federation, as it was now called, had become a major power in the galaxy. Admiral Nicole Foster stood on the command deck of her flagship, the Inevitable. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen countless battles. The massive ship hung in space above a newly liberated world. Below, the people celebrated their freedom from consortium control. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Federation headquarters," said her communications officer. Nicole nodded. "Put it through to my private chamber." In her room, the holographic image of President Ben Howard appeared. He was an older man with kind eyes that contrasted with the firm set of his mouth. "Admiral Foster, congratulations on another successful operation," he said. "The liberation of the Centauri worlds gives us control of 3 more major trade routes." "Thank you, Mr. President. The consortium forces barely put up a fight. Their technology hasn't advanced in decades. Ours improves every year." The President's expression grew serious. "Our intelligence reports that the consortium leaders are growing desperate. They're planning something big. We need you to return to New Earth immediately for a strategy meeting." New Earth, formerly the first human colony of New Dawn, had become the capital of the Federation. In the 90 years since its founding, it had grown from a small settlement to a gleaming metropolis that rivaled old Earth itself. 3 days later, the inevitable arrived in orbit around New Earth. Nicole took a shuttle down to the surface where the Federation's military and political leaders waited in the Grand Council chamber. "We have confirmed reports," began the intelligence director, "that the consortium is attempting to access ancient weapons platforms orbiting the galactic core. These platforms were built by a species that vanished thousands of years ago. If activated, they could destroy entire star systems." A murmur ran through the room. Nicole leaned forward. "How close are they to activating these weapons?" "Too close," replied the director. "They've already sent their best scientists and military units to the control station. Our sources say they plan to target our core worlds first, including both Earths." President Howard stood up. "We cannot allow this to happen. Admiral Foster, you will lead a special task force to stop the consortium from accessing these weapons. You have full authority to use any resources you need." Nicole nodded. "I know just the team for this mission." She selected Commander Ethan Miller to lead the ground team. Ethan was the Federation's top intelligence officer, a man who could blend into any environment and spoke 12 alien languages perfectly. "This won't be like our usual operations," Nicole told him as they prepared. "We can't go in with a full fleet. The control station is hidden within an artificial asteroid field. We need stealth, not firepower." Ethan smiled. "Stealth is what I do best, Admiral." They chose a ship that looked like an ordinary trading vessel but contained advanced Federation technology. Ethan's team included 6 specialists, each the best in their field. They studied every piece of information about the ancient control station and the consortium forces guarding it. When they reached the edge of the asteroid field, they activated their disguise systems. To anyone watching, they appeared to be just another supply ship bringing materials to the consortium base. "We're being hailed," said the pilot. "They want our clearance codes." Ethan stepped forward. "Send the codes we obtained from our sources, then prepare for possible combat." They might not be fooled. The codes worked. The consortium guards waved them through, directing them to a landing bay on the largest asteroid. As they docked, Ethan's team prepared their weapons and equipment. "Remember," he told them, "our primary goal is to reach the control center and prevent the weapons from being activated. If possible, we'll reprogram them to target consortium strongholds instead. If not, we destroy the entire system." They moved through the base like shadows, using stealth technology to avoid detection. When they couldn't avoid guards, they used silent stun weapons to clear their path. Finally, they reached the central chamber. Inside, a dozen consortium scientists worked at control panels surrounding a glowing sphere. "That's it," whispered Maya, the team's tech expert. "The control interface, they're almost ready to activate the weapons." Ethan assessed the situation quickly. "Carlos, Elena, secure the doors. Maya with me. The rest of you deal with any resistance but try not to damage the equipment." They burst into the room. The consortium guards reached for their weapons but were too slow. Within moments, Ethan's team had control of the chamber. "Keep your hands where I can see them," Ethan told the scientists. "Maya, get to work on that interface." Maya rushed to the control panels. Her fingers flew across the alien symbols as she worked to understand the ancient system. "This is amazing," she said. "The weapons aren't just platforms. They're a network that spans the entire galaxy. Whoever built this could have destroyed anything, anywhere." "Can you stop it from firing?" Ethan asked. Maya nodded. "Better than that. I can redirect it. The targeting systems are already programmed. With consortium worlds, I just need to confirm the command sequence." A loud explosion shook the chamber. "They're trying to break through," called Carlos from the door. "Hurry," Ethan told Maya. Her hands moved faster. "Almost got it." The glowing sphere changed color from blue to red. The room filled with a deep humming sound. "What did you do?" Ethan asked. "I've redirected the weapons to target the consortium's remaining military bases," Maya explained. "Non-civilian targets only. The energy buildup has started. In 1 hour, every major consortium stronghold will be hit simultaneously." They fought their way back to their ship, holding off waves of consortium soldiers. As they escaped the asteroid field, they watched on their sensors as the ancient weapons activated. Beams of energy shot out from the galactic core, striking precisely at the heart of consortium power. When they returned to New Earth, Admiral Foster was waiting. "The consortium government has collapsed," she told them. "Their military leaders are dead or in hiding. Most of their subject worlds have already declared independence or asked to join the Federation." Ethan looked at his team. They were tired, but proud. "What happens now?" he asked. Admiral Foster smiled. "Now we rebuild the galaxy properly, without cages or masters, the way it should have been all along. Across former consortium space, planets that had lived under alien rule for generations now saw Federation ships arriving not as conquerors, but as liberators. The species that once thought themselves superior to humans now found themselves asking for mercy from the people they had exiled and forgotten. The last remnants of the consortium formally surrendered 3 months later. The cage that was meant to contain humanity had become the foundation of an empire that now spanned a third of the galaxy. And it was still growing. 50 years passed since the Revenant first breached the barrier. In that time, Earth had changed beyond what anyone from the previous century could imagine. Cities now floated above the ground, powered by fusion energy. The ocean floors hosted vast farms that fed billions. And in the shipyards of Mars, the largest fleet ever built by human hands waited for the order to launch. General William Reeves stood at the window of his office on Luna Base, looking down at the blue-green planet below. He was a tall man with dark skin and a serious face that rarely smiled. Today, however, he allowed himself a small grin. After decades of planning, Operation Breakout would finally begin. His comm unit beeped. "General, the President is ready. For you." William straightened his uniform and walked to the conference room. The walls displayed a live feed from Earth. President John Blake and the 12 members of the High Council waited on screen. "General Reeves," said the President, "today is the day we've waited for since our great-grandparents were imprisoned. Are your forces ready?" "Yes, Mr. President," William replied. "Every ship, every weapon, every soldier knows their task. We have rehearsed this operation 1,000 times. And the disruptor arrays? All 50 stations are in position around the solar system. When activated together, they will create a breach large enough for our entire fleet to pass through." The President nodded. "Then you have my authority to proceed. May the spirits of those who came before us watch over this mission." William returned to the command center, a vast room filled with hundreds of officers monitoring screens and control panels. He took his place at the central platform. "Begin the countdown," he ordered. "All ships prepare for launch. Disruptor. Stations stand by." Across the solar system, ships of all sizes moved into formation. The colony vessels, each carrying 10,000 people and everything they would need to build new homes on distant worlds. The cargo ships loaded with machines, supplies and seeds from Earth. And the warships led by the massive battleship Defiance. "All ships report ready, sir," said William's second in command. "Disruptor stations report ready," added another officer. William took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had worked toward for 150 years. Activate disruptors. Create the breach. Around the edges of the solar system, 50 stations fired beams of energy at the same point on the barrier. Where they met, the barrier began to shimmer and weaken. A hole appeared, small at first, then growing larger and larger. "Breach is stable," reported an officer. "Size is sufficient for the fleet to pass through." "First wave, move out," ordered William. The warships went first, led by the Defiance. The massive battleship approached the breach, weapons ready in case the consortium had guards waiting on the other side. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Lisa Chen watched as her ship passed through the barrier that had contained humanity for so long. The ship shuddered slightly, then steadied. "We're through," she announced to her crew. "Sensors, full scan. What's waiting for us?" 6 consortium patrol vessels approaching," replied her sensor officer. "They appear surprised by our arrival." Lisa smiled coldly. "They've forgotten how dangerous we can be. Battle stations. Show them that humanity has returned." The consortium ships fired first, energy weapons lancing out toward the Defiance. But the human ship was ready. Its advanced shields, designed using knowledge gained from a century of studying alien technology, absorbed the blasts easily. "Return, fire," ordered Lisa. The Defiance fired its main weapons. Beams of concentrated energy struck the alien vessels. 2 exploded immediately. The others tried to flee. "Pursuit course," Lisa commanded. "Don't let them escape to warn others." More human warships emerged from the breach, joining the battle. Within minutes, all 6 consortium vessels were destroyed. "The way is clear," Lisa reported back to General Reeves. "Begin the exodus." For the next 3 days, ships poured through the breach. Thousands of vessels carrying millions of people, all heading for the star system the probes had identified years ago. A perfect place for humanity's first colony beyond their prison. The consortium tried to stop them. More ships arrived, larger and more powerful than the patrol vessels. But humanity had prepared well. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, using tactics the aliens had never seen before. By the time the colony ships reached their destination, a beautiful, blue-green world they named New Dawn, the space around them was secure. Human warships had established a defensive perimeter, and construction vessels were already building orbital stations. On the bridge of the Defiance, now anchored above New Dawn, Lisa received an unexpected message. "Captain, we're picking up a transmission. It's not from Earth or any of our ships." "Put it through," Lisa ordered. The face that appeared on the screen was alien, 4 eyes and purple skin with ridge-like patterns. But unlike the cold faces of the consortium leaders, this one showed clear emotion. "I am Krelvon of the Zatari people," the alien said in careful human language. "We have watched your arrival with great interest. The consortium has oppressed my people for generations, as they once imprisoned yours. We wish to speak with your leaders about a possible alliance." Lisa was surprised but kept her face neutral. "I will pass your message to my superiors. Where can we meet?" "Our delegation can come to your new world in 3 days," replied Krelvon. "We bring others who also suffer under consortium rule." When Lisa reported this to General Reeves in the diplomatic corps, a young officer named Ryan Mitchell was assigned to meet the aliens. Ryan had studied all known alien languages and cultures from the data the probes had gathered over the years. The meeting took place on New Dawn's surface, in a clearing near the first human settlement. Ryan watched as ships from 5 different alien species landed. Each had a story similar to humanity's, planets controlled or oppressed by the consortium, people looking for freedom. "The consortium is not what it once was," explained Krelvon. "Many of the founding species have fallen into civil war. Those that remain use their power to control others. When we learned that humans had broken free, we saw hope for the first time in generations." Ryan listened carefully, then spoke. 150 years ago, aliens put us in a cage and forgot about us. We never forgot. We never stopped planning for this day. Now we're free and we don't intend to be imprisoned again. If you truly want an alliance, know this. Humanity will fight rather than submit, and we've become very good at fighting." Krelvan and the other aliens looked at each other, then back at Ryan. "That," said Krelvan, "is exactly why we came to you. The galaxy needs people who remember how to fight for freedom." As Ryan began discussions with the alien delegations, more human ships arrived through the breach. The exodus continued, and, with each passing day, humanity's foothold among the stars grew stronger. The cage that was meant to contain them had only made them more determined to spread across the galaxy. And in the halls of what remained of the consortium leadership, alarm spread. The species they had exiled and forgotten had returned, stronger and more dangerous than ever. 100 years passed since the day the aliens trapped humanity in their own solar system. Earth had changed. Where once nations fought each other, now a single government united all people. Where once resources were wasted, now everything was used with careful purpose. Every child born in the last century grew up knowing one truth: they lived in a cage, and someday they would break free. Dr. Samuel Garcia walked through the Barrier Research Division, now a vast complex that stretched beneath most of North America. The grandson of Olivia Diaz, he had grown up in these halls watching his mother and grandmother work on the same problem: how to break through the alien barrier. "Dr. Garcia, they're ready for you," said his assistant, a young woman named Lily. Samuel nodded and followed her to the testing chamber. Inside, a team of scientists waited around a machine that filled most of the room. It looked like a silver needle pointed at the ceiling, surrounded by rings of metal and glowing energy. "Is everyone ready?" Samuel asked. The team nodded. They had been working on this project for years. Today, they would see if it worked. "Begin the sequence," Samuel ordered. The machine hummed to life. Energy flowed through the rings, each one lighting up in turn. The needle began to spin faster and faster until it was just a blur. "Phase 1 complete," said a technician. "Beginning, Phase 2. The energy changed color, from blue to purple to a deep red. The air in the chamber felt heavy, like before a storm. "Phase 2 complete," reported the technician. "Ready for Phase 3. Samuel took a deep breath. This was the moment they had worked toward for generations. "Proceed." The needle stopped spinning suddenly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a thin beam of light shot from its tip toward the ceiling. On screens around the room, they could see the beam continue upward, through the miles of rock above them, through the atmosphere, out into space. "Tracking the beam," said another scientist. "It's reached the barrier." Everyone held their breath as they watched the screens. The beam hit the invisible barrier that had trapped humanity for a century. For a moment, the barrier became visible, a shimmering wall of energy surrounding the entire solar system. Then a tiny hole appeared where the beam touched the barrier. The room erupted in cheers. Samuel stared at the screen, watching as the hole remained stable. "We did it," he whispered. "Probe ready?" he asked louder. "Probe is ready," confirmed the launch director from Mission Control, his voice coming through the speakers. "Launch now," Samuel ordered. Miles above them, a small spacecraft no bigger than a pencil launched from the moon base. It moved quickly toward the barrier, toward the tiny hole created by Samuel's machine. "Probe approaching the breach," reported the launch director. 3, 2, 1, it's through." More cheers filled the room. For the first time in 100 years, something made by human hands had passed beyond the barrier. "Receiving data," said a technician. "The probe is working perfectly." Samuel smiled. This was just the beginning. The probe was too small to carry humans, but it could carry information. And information was what they needed most. Later that day, Samuel stood before President Catherine Wells and the Earth Unification Council. The leaders of humanity listened as he explained what they had achieved. "The hole is tiny," Samuel said. "Too small for ships. But we can make it bigger. And even now we can send probes through to learn about what's happening outside our prison." "How many probes can you send?" asked the president. "Thousands," Samuel replied. "We've prepared for this moment. The probes are ready to launch." President Wells stood up. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen a lifetime of preparation. Dr. Garcia, your grandmother began this work. Your mother continued it. Now you have given us our first real hope. I hereby authorize Operation Whisper. Send your probes. Let us see what the galaxy has become while we've been locked away. Over the next weeks, thousands of tiny probes slipped through the hole in the barrier. Each one was designed to gather information and send it back to Earth. They spread out across nearby star systems, watching and listening. The data they sent back surprised everyone. The mighty consortium that had locked away humanity was no longer united. Many alien species that had once been part of it were now fighting each other. Others had fallen into decline, their technology no longer advancing. They've grown weak, said Samuel as he showed the findings to the council, while we grew stronger. Can we break through completely? Asked the president. Can we send ships? Not yet, Samuel admitted. But we're working on it. The breakthrough with the probes is just the first step. At the edge of the solar system, a new ship prepared for its mission. The Revenant was unlike any vessel humans had built before. Black as space itself, it moved silently, its engines using technology reversed engineered from the alien device Olivia Diaz had studied a century ago. Captain Susan Parker stood on the bridge, looking at her crew. They were the best pilots and engineers Earth had to offer, chosen for the most dangerous mission in human history. We all know what we're here to do, Susan said. We're going to test the new disruptor technology at the barrier itself. If it works, we'll create a breach large enough for the Revenant to pass through. We'll be the first humans to leave the solar system in 100 years. And if it doesn't work? Asked her first officer. Then we keep trying, Susan replied firmly. Failure isn't an option. Not anymore. The Revenant approached the barrier, carefully. The disruptor, a massive device attached to the front of the ship, powered up. Energy gathered at its tip, building until it released in a powerful burst. Where the energy hit the barrier, a tear appeared, larger than the hole the probes used, growing wider by the second. It's working, shouted an officer. The breach is stable. Take us through, ordered Susan. The Revenant moved forward, through the tear in humanity's prison wall. For a brief moment, the ship shuddered as it passed the barrier's edge. Then it was through, the first human ship to reach the stars in a century. The breach collapsed behind them, but it didn't matter. They had proven it was possible. Humans could escape their cage. Send the message to Earth, Susan said, her voice steady despite the emotion she felt. Tell them, the door is open. We just need to make it wider. Back on Earth, preparations began for the next phase. The time for whispers was ending. Soon, humanity would shout their return to the stars.